Hi, everyone. Welcome to October 11th edition of our Thursday Kubernetes community meeting. My name is Paris Pittman. I work at Google. I do community stuffs for Kubernetes. And today we have a full agenda of our regular shenanigans. That includes release updates, graphs, all kinds of fun stuff. First things first, though, if you are not speaking, please remember to mute. And also, please be excellent to each other as well. We are recording, the internet is forever, so please remember that. All right, and first up is our usual show of a demo, and Brandon's here from IBM to kick it off for us. Brandon, you want to take it away?
Yep. Thank you, Paris.
Yeah.
All right, let me share my screen. Okay. All right. Can you see my screen now? All right. Is the screen good? And everyone's here?
Yep, you're good.
Okay. All right. Thanks again for letting us show our work. So encrypted container images. This was a piece of work that started off in IBM, and we are working well with the community, especially the folks from OCI and Containerd, um, to get this integrated and into Containerd and Kubernetes. So I believe also Stefan and Hasho, who are the main implementers, are also on the call. So if you do have any questions about implementation things, do feel free to throw them out. And whenever you have any clarifications, just feel free to ask questions along the way. All right. So I'll talk a really quick go through a few slides on the container images, what we are thinking about in terms of the OCI proposal, kind of the encryption and decryption flow, followed by a Kubernetes demo. So the main idea of encrypting containers, as the name describes, is we want to be able to encrypt the image contents. The use cases that we are thinking about is sensitive code. So this would be the case of things like if instance of this would be trading algorithms. A lot of banks and financial institutes want to keep their algorithm secret. Another case that we are handling is also a case where we have a untrusted or compromised registry. So if the registry is owned by a third party or within an organization, if the registry is shared by multiple teams and there's very sensitive information in the images, then this can be used so that we can distrust the registry. We have additional thought experiments about use cases such as enforcing geofencing or features like that through the use of a TPM or HSM or some sort of crypto device. So the proposal is fairly simple. So over here we have the original OCI proposal, OCI image. And what we're doing is we're doing layer-based encryption. So over here, the changes, as you can see, are usually we have the files and we target them. We are adding this additional step to perform the encryption. So the changes here are really the media type we're adding has a plus ENC for encryption. And we are also having a bunch of keys stored. Now, these are not the keys directly to decrypt the image. And I will go through a bit more detail on how we actually distribute these keys. So we have the media type, the blob itself will be encrypted, and then we have some wrap keys, which we will talk about soon. So the main idea around the encryption is, so first we do perform the standard encryption. So we take the layer and we do a AES. In our case, we're using GCM, which has integrity checking also. So what we do is we end up with an encrypted blob. And so this will be the layer data itself. And what we want to do is we want to say when we encrypt an image, we say we want it to be decryptable by certain recipients or entities. Right? So the way we get the decryption key to the recipients are we perform key wrapping. And so the idea is we're using asymmetric protocol like RSA. And so in our case, we have implemented shown a few, which is OpenPGP, GWE, and PKCS7. So the idea here is you take the public key and then you encrypt the encryption key to produce a wrap key. So this wrap key can be published alongside in the registry, but it's only decryptable by the recipients that have the appropriate private key. Right. So these are part of the digest that we talked about. Decryption is fairly straightforward, basically the opposite process of encryption, but instead using the private key, which is the recipient should have. So you get the encryption key, and then we perform the opposite of what we did with the layer. Okay, so to go through the flow of how we see this being used, so let's say we want to encrypt um, image for user A. So we have user A, we have user A's public key. When we do a Docker build, we say we want to encrypt this for user A. Now this could be any arbitrary number of public keys or any number of recipients. So we upload the image as well as the keys into the registry. And what we're doing is now we have to run this, be able to decrypt the image and run it on the runtime. So when a user creates a workload, before that, what we do is we create something we call an image encrypt secret. And we see this as kind of similar to image pool secrets, which gives you the content necessary to to pull an image, except this is the content necessary to decrypt the image. So an example of this would be the private key used to decrypt the image. And so when the workload is then sent to the workload to the kubelet, this information is also sent to the kubelet to perform the decryption of the image and running of the image. So just as a side note, this private key may not this secret may not just be a private key in the case where we're thinking about HSMs or TPMs. This could be some kind of authorization information for the worker instead. So the way we've approached the implementation of this has been ideally to add an image encrypt secret. Right now in our prototype, we are using the image pool secrets. And what we are doing then is we've made modifications to the container library, the container D library, and we are going to perform the encryption and decryption on the container D CRI. Okay, so let's do a demo. So I'm gonna talk through this and pause on the way because I think it may be a little small. So what we're having here is we've already created an encrypted image and we've uploaded it to one of our local registries. And so what we're going to show here is we actually encrypted this as using a GPG key. So we're going to first show the list of keys that we have. So in this case, we've encrypted the image for someone with the email ctr@ctr.org. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create the secret that we mentioned earlier. So in our case, so what we've done here is this is the export of the secret key. So this is the private key information. And what we're doing is we're going to create a registry secret, an image pool secret with this key inside. So right now this gives us a private key, which we're gonna right now as a kind of workaround, we demonstrate this as an image full secret. And so we create a pod, and then so this is encrypted image, and we have the image full secret. We add in this private key that we've created. Um, of course, ideally, what we could do is um, have this image encryption secrets be kind of tied to a service account, like image full secrets are, and that way, this should be transparent to the user. So what we have here is we've added a facility in containerd to look at the information about the image. So you can see that out of this Nginx image, there are 3 layers, and they're encrypted with PGP keys with a key ID over here. So this helps our runtime to detect how we are going to actually perform the decryption on the image. So it's possible to have multiple keys, so that let's say I could encrypt an image for 2 different parties, and they may not use the same protocol. For example, I can have a PGP key and I can have a PKCS key. These should just live as annotations as part of the image specification. Alright. So what we're going to do next is we're going to create the pod, and we're going to just verify that we are able to see it. I'm just going to fast forward here. All right. All right. So basically, this is showing that we've successfully launched a pod, which is the pod of the image that was encrypted. Right. So this is all that I have for the demo for today. Try to keep it short. If we have any questions, I guess we can talk to them.
Yeah. Any questions for Brandon?
Yeah, I had a quick one. It looks to me like this workflow is based on the idea that you're going to have the wrapped decryption key in the manifest with the image when it gets pushed to the container registry. Is that
Correct.
correct?
Yeah.
Have you considered workflows where you just push the encrypted layers and then you provide the encrypted key separately to a recipient?
Yeah. That's a good question. So um, the answer is yes. It's we ended up in a discussion which got a lot more complicated than we hoped it would be. So the idea we had over there is to have some kind of so 2 alternatives. So one of which is if you could directly interface with a key management solution, um, you could distribute the keys that way. Another thing that we were looking at was this thing we call the centralized key distribution service. And so the idea here would be that it would receive requests for certain keys, and we will have some kind of access control through the verification of certifications. Only, for example, if um, let's say for IBM, if only a request is signed by a certain key in IBM, I'm gonna produce a wrap key for that particular user. So this is the case where we are thinking that if you open up a new Kubernetes cluster and there's a CA for that cluster, then as long as we sign the CA, we should be able to generate keys on the fly for that particular cluster. I hope this answers the question.
Yeah, that's definitely. Thanks.
All right. And then if there's any other questions for Brandon, feel free to pop them in chat. And then we're going to move on. Brandon, thank you so much for joining today.
All right, thank you very much for having us.
Thanks. All right, next up is release updates from our fearless leader for 1.13. Aish, you on? Thought I saw you join the big old room.
Let me move closer.
Yep, there she is.
Can you hear it?
Yep, I can hear you.
Cool. All right. So 113 is chugging along underway. We started enhancement collection this Monday. So as of now, we have 37 issues in the features repo. I have a link to them there. So a call for the SIG owner, SIG leads and feature owners, please help us in keeping the issues up to date with labels, the kind, priority, and SIG if it's not there. And also, if you could, Kendrick, our enhancement lead, he should have left a note on almost all the issues, asking for what's pending in terms of code, tests, and docs. If you can update that information in the issue, along with a level of confidence, like how confident we are in wrangling it in 113, that will be super helpful for us. Enhancement freeze is 10/23. After which we'll have a better sense of what's really planned, and we can start talking to SIGs individually after that. As for any large or risky enhancements that are planned, the request is to try to land it early November, because our slush is on November 8th and code freeze is 15. So it'll at least give us a week and a half to assess the stability from CI signal. Talking of CI signal, Josh sent out a weekly report. And we plan to send it out every week, and our first CI signal report went out yesterday. Luckily there are not too many issues, but there are a few chronic ones that have been plaguing us for a while now. So if you have any issues assigned to your SIG, please treat it as priority, and please get it triaged / someone to work on resolving it. And we will reach out to you or to the SIG more frequently if those issues prolong during the release. In other announcements, after our 112 retro, we added a couple of more alpha and RC builds to the release schedule itself. This is to help us exercise our build and release tools more frequently during the cycle. So now we have a second alpha planned on the 23rd of October and a second RC planned on 11th of November. So that's pretty much it from my end.
Awesome. And then I just threw the patch update up there too, just from the question that I asked in SIG release chat today. And it's 1.10.9 is being planned for next Tuesday, the 16th. Thank you very much for your update. All right, next up is our gorgeous graph of the week. Josh, I am going to share my screen, and Josh has some country and time zone stats for us that are neat. All right, let me start sharing my screen here. And then Josh is up. All right. Can everybody see my screen? Josh, is this the right chart?
Yep.
All right.
So links are there in the notes for you to actually explore it for yourself, which is really a better way to see it. So Lucas actually has added some data to the database and has now added 2 new charts based on that data. One is stats by country, and the other one is stats by time zone. So here you're looking at the landing page for stats by country, which is interesting given that we're about to have our first KubeCon in Shanghai. And so if you want to display that second link. So for example, one of the things I might be wondering coming up in the KubeCon to Shanghai is how many contributors do we have from China, Korea, and Japan, over time, looking at, are we getting contributors from there? And particularly what's the proportion between, say, China, Korea, and Japan? And so that's an example of a query they're actually kind of looking at that. And we actually have a lot of activity, sort of steadily increasing activity from China in particular, but also, increasing on a smaller scale from Korea and Japan. in terms of contributors. And then it'll be really interesting to look at this chart about 2 months after KubeCon Shanghai and see if we get a big jump after the conference and the new contributor workshop and everything else. So our second graph, which is more sort of immediately useful to SIG leads, is contributors by time zone. And again, you can select any number of different metrics to do this from. It's a really pretty sort of heat map graph. In order to get the how do we go with the platform this is built on? Grafana. In order to get the Grafana heat map to work, we have to render the time zones as numbers. And so that's your time zone column down the left side, from +13 to -10. For those of you not used to looking at the numbers, -7 is usually the west coast of the US. Daylight savings time enters into it. +3 is, I think, Central European time. So you've got that there. Now, where this actually becomes useful is, if you want to click on that second link, say that I'm actually one of the leads for SIG Networking, and we're looking at changing the time of our weekly SIG meeting, then it can be super useful to actually just narrow this down to your repository group, which is the directories and repositories owned by your SIG, and take a look at which time zones contributors to that repository group are in. So in the case of SIG Networking, what we see is that the majority of sort of contributors range between, how did you change that?
How did I change what?
Okay, just
It was on PR creators before.
Okay, that would be why.
Yep. And I changed it to contributors.
Got it. Okay. And actually, unlike a lot of other SIGs, we actually have people. It looks like SIG Networking, most of the activity goes between +3 to -5, which is Eastern time zone. No, Central time zone, with a real focus on Eastern time zone and Central European time. And so that's a good argument for if SIG Networking was changing the time of the weekly meeting, then having it at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is a little early for folks on the West Coast, would actually be a good time because it would cover where their creators actually live. As well as other SIGs, if you want to switch to SIG cluster lifecycle instead, keep it in PR creators, but SIG cluster lifecycle. Show you the difference. SIG cluster lifecycle, because they've got a whole bunch of people on the West Coast, would not want to switch it to a time that was too early for the West Coast.
Actually, these are UTC time offsets, so values like -7, -8 is Los Angeles time, Pacific time. About -4 is East Coast, New York, and so on. Europe is about +2 to +1 to +3, possibly, and everything like +8, +10 is China. And China and maybe Japan, it's on the other end, like +20, +12, +11.
Oh, hey, Lucas. I didn't realize you were going to be on this call. Speaking of time zones.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's a chart that's a little bit more immediately useful. I mean, obviously take it in a caveat because people use VPNs, people have moved, other things happen to make this data a little fuzzy. But something to take into account, particularly if you're changing your meeting schedule for your SIG. And that's all.
All right. Thank you, Josh. All right. And then next up, we have a SIG update from Network. Casey, I thought I saw you on earlier. Are you still there?
I am indeed.
Awesome. And then if you can pop your slide link into chat, and then we'll put that in the agenda and we'll be good to go.
Sure, let me grab the link. Okay, so there's a link that hopefully people should be able to access. And I can share my screen to show the slides. Cool. So I'm going to give a quick update on what we've been doing in SIG Network. I think it's been a couple cycles actually since we've presented here. So I've put together some highlights over the past 2 cycles. So first, we've got a couple things that we've got into alpha status. So we've got a contribution to add alpha support for SCTP. And that's added to both services and network policy. We are letting that bake for the next cycle, get some implementations of that, and hopefully we'll move to promote that probably in 1.14 would be my guess. We've also got Pod Readiness Plus, or what we're calling Pod Readiness Plus, as an alpha feature. This is an extension to the idea of pod readiness that allows you to kind of pull in systems external to the pod in terms of defining what a pod readiness is. So this is potentially useful for things outside of networking, but we have been thinking of it mostly in terms of systems like services and network policy, which a pod itself may not be aware of, but do have implications for that pod's availability to the rest of the system. In the last cycle, IPVS Kube Proxy went GA. So that was in beta for a while, but is now available. If you're not aware, that's a new mode of operation for the Kube Proxy that should provide some performance benefits in certain scenarios, like when you have a very large number of services. CNI bandwidth shaping. So for a very long time, we've had kind of experimental annotations to allow traffic control using TC via KubeNet. And we have extended that support to CNI. So now those same annotations should work whether or not you're using KubeNet or your favorite CNI plugin. There's also been a joint effort with CNI to add a kind of reference plugin for implementing that. Network policy, kind of related to the SCTP stuff. We've added some alpha support there. And we've also promoted the existing features of IP block and egress rules to GA. One of the things we were hoping to do in the last cycle was to get core DNS listed as the default DNS plugin in most installers. We didn't quite make it there. We found a last-minute scalability issue. But we are on top of that and hoping to get that in this cycle. There's also the network plumbing working group, which is a subgroup of SIG Network, which has been focused on defining a kind of extensions-based specification for allowing multiple networks to be attached to pods. So this is a feature that is useful in some sectors, like NFV, and we are trying to find a way to do this outside of the core Kubernetes API. So there's a V1 proposal for that the working group has agreed, and they're looking for kind of the right place to for that proposal to live. So major themes for the current cycle. First and foremost, DNS. Obviously, we've got the scalability bug from core DNS that fell over from the last cycle. We are trying to get that in early so that we can update installers and promote core DNS to the default provider. We're also looking to agree a cap for node local DNS cache. So this is something that we have been hearing for a while, and we think will provide a bunch of improvements, including DNS lookup performance. So there's a link there to the KEP. It's currently quite active, and our goal is to get that agreed in the cycle. For IPv6, we currently have single stack support, so you can run your cluster in either IPv4 or IPv6 mode. There's some work ongoing to add CI for that. And in parallel, we are working on a KEP for dual stack support. So one of our goals for this cycle is also to get that KEP merged. Two other themes for this cycle. One is conformance. So we've identified that there are some potentially software areas in our definition of conformance and networking. So we're trying to get an effort underway to define those and do an audit of what we consider networking conformance. And the second is Windows, where we're trying to get our kubeproxy implementation to GA and passing the current set of conformance tests. A couple other notable things. So we've got our charter underway, so there's a PR up for that, and we are working through putting some finishing touches on it and getting that in. And we recently added some owners to the services and routes controller from SIG Cloud Provider, since that's kind of a area of shared ownership. I think that's all I had. So here's some information on how to find us, and I'm happy to take some questions either here or after the meeting.
Awesome. Thank you. That was great.
Thank you.
Anybody have anything for Casey? Quiet group today. All right. Thank you so much, Casey. All right. Now we are on to the announcements portion of our show. Josh, do you want to take it away for the first announcement about Shanghai?
Yep. So the Shanghai New Contributors Workshop is at this point booked up. We have the maximum number of people that we want to accept initially. Tomorrow, we will have a form going up to join a waiting list. We are going to ask people to confirm. I'm expecting a certain number of people to drop out because they weren't really clear on what was involved in the New Contributor Workshop. So if anyone listening to this is in Shanghai or is going to Shanghai, wanted to join the New Contributor Workshop and didn't get in, please do join the waiting list, because I expect that we'll be accepting at least some people from the waiting list. I'm sorry we can't accept everybody, but this is our first time doing the New Contributor Workshop in 2 different languages, and we wanted to limit it to 100 attendees because we don't want to kill ourselves. Related to that, I also wanted to mention that we are going to have more Chinese language community goodness ready. One is the CN Dev channel in Slack is, I believe, already operational. And so people can join that if they want to discuss contributing to Kubernetes in Chinese. And we will soon have a Chinese language section of discuss.kubernetes.io. That's waiting on translation of the code of conduct and a couple of things before that goes live. But We want people to be able to participate, even if they're not that comfortable with English.
Great job on the event in Shanghai. That's exciting that it's sold out. Very cool. Thank you, Josh. All right, and then the next on the same similar topics, Seattle Contributor Summit. George.
Yep. So this is going to be on the Monday before KubeCon. We are starting to run low on tickets. So if you haven't registered yet, the link that I've put in the notes there, you can click through there for the RSVP form, and you should be able to see the draft schedule of what we have as far as an agenda for that day. If you have any issues, please contact us and we can try to sort it.
Awesome. And then George, were you also going to take the CNCF? Oh no, you were going to take office hours. Do you just want to jump ahead on that one?
Yeah, Kubernetes office hours is next week on Wednesday. Unfortunately, we have 2 members that are traveling, so I could use some help. So if you want to help us answer user questions about Kubernetes, I need 2 volunteers in the European time zone and 2 volunteers for the US West Coast time zone. Please ping me on Slack or hit me up on chat if you can help us out. Thank you.
Awesome. And then, yep, if anybody wants to watch past episodes of Office Hours, they are on YouTube, and feel free to subscribe to Kubernetes Community to see different videos that we post. I guess I'll take the next one. Doesn't have a name next to it, but I know you're can't make the call today. The CNCF Awards nominations are open for different things like chop wood, carry water. I think it's like top committer, things along those lines. There is a link in the agenda doc. I believe that's going to be recognized in Seattle only, not Shanghai. But I know everybody on this call knows an awesome member of the community. Please recognize them. This is one of the ways that we do so. Also, we recognize folks in the shout-outs channel and Slack. Please start to recognize folks in the community. That would be great. These are super easy ways to do so as well. Next item is Meet Our Contributors. This is a once a month YouTube program that we put on. It happens at 2 p.m. and 8 p.m. UTC. It's the quickest and easiest way to mentor folks. If you are saying that you do not have the time to do so, I would challenge that and say that you do. I'm sure you have 1 hour this year to come on this program and answer Q&A from people who are currently upstream contributing or would like to get started. The steering committee has one of those slots monthly as an Ask Me Anything type session, so you can ask some questions about governance, how they got to where they are, and things like that. So it's a super helpful session. Stefan was on one of them and did a super quick code-based tour for the API. The clip of the show is actually in the agenda, so I encourage you to watch it. It's pretty much our most watched show yet. So we definitely have a lot of information that flows through that as well. And that's the Meet Our Contributors Slack channel if you would like more details about that. Then shout outs, my favorite part of the week, at least. And again, these are powered from the shout outs channel on Slack. First one up is from Mikola. Shout out to Meshev for reorganizing the kube control code base. The pull request link is in there. They think that this change improves the contributor experience. Now I spend less time waiting for test and coverage report when I want to check only specific kube control commands. Significant productivity boost for me and hopefully other people too. That's awesome. Shout out. Thank you for that. And then Leo says big ups. Well, actually, nope, that was from Lee. That was me. I remember Lee gave a big ups to Neolit for putting in so much hard work to keep the flurry of SIG cluster lifecycle work organized. Thank you. Anybody else have a last minute shout out that they would like to say verbally? All right. that's it for our call today. Everyone has 20 minutes of their life back, and I'm done. Thanks so much for joining us. Same time next week, same place. I'm waiting for Aaron's Happy Thursday. We can't hang up unless we have Aaron's Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday.
Yeah.
Also, Harris, you got a shout out in the channel. I guess you're just too humble to get it to
Yeah.
give it yourself. But Matt Hicks gave a shout out to Paris for considering every contributor, even the ones that live far from the valley, which Josh just proved we have a few, and work on Kubernetes on their free time. Again, we have a few of those people too. It feels so good to be part of this community, and I cannot agree with that shout out strongly enough. Thank you. And happy Thursday.
All right. Bye, y'all. Bye, everybody. See you.